Welcome back to the second last video of the BC Overlanding series. After waking up in the meadows that we arrived at the night before, we wiped off the condensation that accumulated on the tents before packing up. And after a short drive on the gravel road that snaked its way around the mountain, we made it to the trailhead, where we aired down and started our way up. But it wasn't long before the trail started closing in on us. And as we continued pushing forwards, we could hear the branches run down the sides of the vehicles. After more than a few painful miles and a few trail clearings with the chainsaw, we made it into the forest. Here, the easy trail got a little more difficult, requiring everything the Forester had to get up. And even then, I was unsure if it could handle some of the climbs. Till we reached the first snowdrift. And after a short break, we rerouted ourselves and went across the ridgeline. Till we couldn't push anymore due to the snowpack on the trail. This wasn't the end of our adventure though. We still had to backtrack and make it down the mountain, which required a fair bit of reversing down the trail. Once down the mountain, we headed through the remote backcountry before hitting the ferry across the lake and taking one last Forest Service road to our lakeside campsite, where we got hit with a little bit of a storm before heading to bed. Join us today as we push the limits on the Forester and explore this amazing place. What is up, and welcome back everyone to the fourth day of the overlanding and off-roading adventure. So this is where we camped last night if you're not following along, which you should be because we've done a lot of awesome stuff. We finally got a pretty cool evening. It wasn't super hot. It was actually pretty humid in the evening, and then when it cooled down, everything was just covered in water when I woke up. The car, the tent, like the whole roof of the tent was moisture, and I had to open up all the vents to try to get some of that moisture out before we folded it up. But it's time to go ahead and pack up the tent and then start hitting the road, because I think we're going up that way and we're gonna go check out another trail. So let's get this tent folded up and on our way. With everyone packed up, we hit the road, which this far in the backcountry wasn't much of a road, rather a single-laid dirt trail that followed the lake's shoreline. And it wasn't long before we turned off the road and onto today's trailhead, where we aired down the cars and proceeded to head up the trail. And we are on the trail, as you can tell by us going super slow for a skier, and it's already looking a little rough. Well, it's obviously a little rough, as you can probably tell me bouncing around already, but this looks super cool. Again, we're heading up, so we're going to be gaining a lot of elevation today and maybe getting some really sweet views. I was warned that the mosquitoes are absolutely terrible here, so we'll see how bad they are at the top. But right now they're pretty bad, and I have my windows open because it's nice and it's just filled with mosquitoes. I've never seen so many mosquitoes in a vehicle, so we'll see how long the windows last before I have to close them. There's another one. As soon as we entered the trail, I knew the paint on the Forester had no chance. The vegetation that sat on the side of the trail consumed it, leaving a path no bigger than a hiking trail for us to get through. Yet, we pushed forwards. Austin and Lee, in their brand new Jeep Gladiator, led the convoy up, with Austin often getting out and trimming the trees with his machete. And more than once breaking out the chainsaw to cut down the trees that fell across the trail. As we continued up, the vegetation started to thin out and be replaced by rougher and rougher terrain. And as we got out of the bushes altogether, we found ourselves in some extremely intense terrain. Yet, we were just getting started. The Forester fought to keep all four wheels from slipping as it climbed up, clawing its way to the top. And as the forest really started to thin out. We came out of the trees and onto a plateau that divided the forest from the alpine. From here, we could really get a sense of the amazing beauty of where we were, and the immense scale of this mountain range.
Well, after a couple really rough sections and bouncing the Forester, we made it. There was a little bit of a lost grip here and there, but not too bad. But check out where we are. So we're not on top of a mountain, but we're pretty close. So there's some snowpack mountains and actually the lakes down there. And then over here is just an even higher mountain.
Up here, you barely see the lakes below, yet somehow the mountains still sprawled above us. With ridge after ridge, the mountains went on forever. But this beauty was also the thing preventing us from going farther. On the trail was a solid 8-foot snowdrift that stood in our way. With no real way around it, we had to come up with a different plan to traverse the mountain. And after examining the plateau below us, we determined our new route would follow that side of the mountain.
And back down we go. So as you guys saw, there's like probably a 5-foot snowdrift. So yeah, we can't go past where we were. So what we're gonna do is we're trying to head back down, and there's a little crossing. What we're gonna do is trying to hit that crossing and see if we can get kind of into the valley where there seems to be another road. So yeah, gonna cruise back down. It's probably gonna be a lot easier than going up because we got gravity on our side, but still some pretty sweet views.
Once down to the junction, we headed for the mountainside trail, not really knowing what to expect. On the trail, we were pretty much fully exposed, minus a few patches of trees here and there, but it was only going to get worse. The dirt quickly ended, and all of a sudden, we were on a trail made from years of falling scree. This was not the place to be sitting around, so we went ahead and crossed it. But it was only a few short minutes before we hit the next problem, another snowdrift. This one wasn't so deep, but it still posed a huge risk of sliding us off and into the valley below. So we dug some tracks for us to follow and took it slow. After crossing the snow, we pushed forwards through the next plateau and started climbing again. Till we reached the end.
Well, this is the end of the line. There's too much snow that way, and it's more of the coming back up that there's no way I would make it. Maybe the Gladiator would, but there's no way I would make it. So this is where we're gonna turn around. We're at like 2,200 meters. And the lake is way down there, so we had a nice run anyways, but we're gonna have to now back down to a point where we can turn around. But you can actually see way out there is our ridgeline that we kind of came across, so we've got a little bit of backtracking to do before we can head down the hill.
And that's what we did. With no space to turn around, we head back down the hill that we just came up of. With Austin watching for obstacles I couldn't see, we made quick work of the hill, till I found a place to turn around. And with us turned around, we could cruise back down the hill, but only after working through a couple of snowbanks, few in which I needed a tow off of. While gravity did make the descent easier, it was no walk in the park. We once again had to encounter the obstacles that we met on the way up. Including off-camber patches and paint-destroying bushes.
And success! We made it back down the trail. The Forester's got more than a few scratches. It's got pinstriping. It's trail pinstriping, but that was awesome. So compared to yesterday's trail, I was gonna say last week's trail, I think I like this one better. It was a little more technical, a little more tricky, and definitely pushed the limits on the Forester. As you guys saw in that snow, we had a little bit of issues, and then some of that steep stuff, as soon as I lost momentum, you could see us struggling. So that, I guess, would be fixed with like lockers and stuff on a Forester. I don't know, I'll have to think about it. But it did it really well. And the people on the top on motorcycles were impressed that all of us made it up there, because they said they'd never seen anyone before. But I think now that we're done this trail, we're gonna head north and go to our next camping spot, which I believe actually requires another ferry. So I think we gotta get there sooner than later. So yeah, but I really enjoyed that. All the scratches on the car were definitely worth it.
So we headed north towards the ferry, back on the winding lakeside road, till we came across our first fuel stop in the last couple of days. Although, this one was a little bit different. It required a little bit more work to get the gas. The attendant actually had to hand pump it up to the sight glass to measure the volume before gravity fed it into the car. With us all filled up, it was time to make some miles, but not before we went through another storm. And as we came out the other side of the storm, we arrived at the ferry that just conveniently arrived.
And now we're on the ferry, so time to head to the other side.
This ferry was much shorter than the other one a couple of days ago, simply taking us to the other side, where, once we landed, we jumped back on the Forest Service Road and headed to a campsite for the night.
And now we're at the camp spot for the night, and check this out. So we're right here. It looks like a lot of other people found this, but check that view out. We are literally 5 meters from the lake, so pretty sweet campsite. But as you can hear, it sounds like a lot of other people have found it too. And with that being said, it's time to set up the tent once again.
And with the tent set up and dinner cooking, the clouds down the lake got closer and closer till, once again, they brought in the storm. Yet this time there was no rain. All that came was the wind. Well, a lot of it. And as the sun set, the wind died down, allowing us to sit back, enjoy the views, and discuss today's adventure.
And that's a wrap. So that's the end to our third and final full day here in the Kootenays. We'll have one last episode of us heading back because we are still 600 kilometers away from home, so we are still deep in BC, so we'll have a little bit of a trip on our way back tomorrow, but we won't be doing any crazy off-roading. But I think that was the perfect day to end
this trip on, because, well, we really pushed the Forester to what I think is the limits. Maybe there's a little more there, but it was definitely a little taxing on the Forester and a lot of fun. We made it up to the, not the top, but as far as we could keep going without the snow melting, and then we camped right here at a nice beach. Only thing is, we thought that storm was coming in. Never really materialized to anything, but that's just the way it works sometimes in BC. One thing I did notice though, is it is starting to get a little smoky, but that is BC for you. Really, it's been really hot, so there's probably some forest fires, probably a little that way. Anyways, that is going to be it. So I hope you guys are enjoying this series, and I hope you guys are really enjoyed these last couple of videos. And if you guys want to check out the last video, which will happen next week, be sure to check it out then. So that is it for today, and as always, peace out and stay humble.